Good morning and welcome to another conversation with Mose. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world and that you're one day closer to your dreams, hopes, prayers, and aspirations coming true. Of course, my podcast wouldn't be a podcast without a poem. And this poem is written by yours truly, and it's a new piece. I'm doing it for the very first time. And anyway, it's called Listen and Breathe. The online noise, the offline noise, fucks with my head. Confusion, a strange bedfellow. Black folks lost in the translation. Can't agree to disagree. White folks gaslighting as usual. I sit in the silence. In the realization, the doing nothing is something. I don't need to join the conversation. I just need to listen and breathe. I was inspired to write that poem because of all the online hoopla and confusion and argumentative conversations that I've been seeing online in reference to the Carmelo Anthony case. And first of all, before I get into the podcast, the subject matter for today is Black rage, Black trauma. And I'm only going to speak briefly about the Carmelo Anthony case. And I'm not really going to share my thoughts in great detail, but I'm going to talk about kind of the backlash and the after effects that seem to be going on that have me kind of up in arms within myself. I've been seeing a lot of people give their opinions and their thoughts on the young man and the situation that he's found himself in. And I'm in no way belittling the situation. But first of all, I want to say that I don't think anyone did not expect him to be punished for committing the crime or the situation that, again, he found himself in. I don't think anybody was saying that he needed to get off per se. But anyway, I've seen a lot of black people specifically divided about his reasoning and the whole scenario itself, like defending him. And my issue is, regardless if I agree or disagree, I just don't believe in black people arguing with each other. I just don't. It's a no-win situation, and we can agree to disagree. But I don't like us putting each other down and belittling our racial experiences. I don't know this young man, but it was probably a lot of misdirected anger there, and I'm speaking from experience. And the white young man just happened to reap that, unfortunately. Because I feel like when you get that angry and you want to kill somebody, that's a buildup, a real buildup. And I'm going to speak from my own personal experience with racial injustice and racism. But again, this is not about getting on and complaining about my racial experiences, but it's how to deal with black rage and black trauma. Because I carry it with me every day. I own that. I carry it with me every single day. And it's something that's in me. And I've probably had it in me since I was a child. But the anger is difficult sometimes to carry. I have to do things, I believe, because I carry so much of it. That's why I have so much creativity, so many books, so many things to do, because I have to use that energy. Because I've walked away from a lot of situations where I didn't want to kill anybody, but I wanted to say what I wanted to say. And unfortunately, there are times I've had to be forced into situations where I had to say something where I was provoked. But since I've moved to Oklahoma, I've never been this challenged in such a short period of time. I've been here 8 years, and I've had so many unapologetic racial situations that I found myself in that it's been very difficult to hold back what I want to say. And I've gained weight. I've all the physical things that have happened to me, headaches and backaches and all these physical pains, I know are derived from me suppressing my feelings and my emotions. And it's an art to it. And I can't speak for all black men. And the other thing, I don't like when black women specifically speak for black men. I know you guys have your racial challenges as well, but they're not the same. How black men are treated is totally different than how black women are treated. And again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's one of those situations where I've been on jobs where companies feel as though we've hired a black woman, so we've reached our quota. So they're not as anxious to hire a black man in the same position or in a position of leadership or whatever. And again, this is not a matter of which is right or wrong or which is better. It's just different. And we're supposed to be providers for our household. The pressure is different, as a man, because you're supposed to be able to provide and you're supposed to be able to make the money. And that's my challenge right now. I'm very angry, disappointed, and confused. And it's not all about white people, because I've had some really traumatic experiences with black people as well. It enrages me to be degraded or put down, or what's the word I'm looking for? Being embarrassed by a black person in front of a white person. When a black person belittles me or does something to offend me in front of a white person to get some kind of brownie point or validation, that sends me into a rage beyond understanding. It hurts more when it comes from a black person to me because it hits different. I would never and have never belittled a black person of any age, any kind. I don't care if they were gay, straight, transgender, it wouldn't matter. I would never do that. If I have an issue with you, I'm pulling you to the side and letting you know, right or wrong. But something about being degraded in front of a Caucasian or a non-black person, it's wrong anyway. But that sends me into a rage, And when I'm angry, I shake. If I'm really angry, I may cry. And then I just lose control. I've never laid my hands on anybody. I would never do that unless I was provoked to. And my point in saying this is that black rage and black trauma is not easy to maneuver through, for everybody. I've had great parents. I still have great parents that have helped me manage my emotions because I've always been able to speak up for myself. My whole life, I've always spoke up. Even as a kid, if it didn't seem right, why are we doing it? And I was pretty precocious as a kid. And in hindsight, I've always been wired that way. If something didn't make sense, I asked. I was always kind of that guy that was like inquisitive and just wondering. So it's always kind of gotten me in trouble. But I want to backtrack a little bit about an experience I had at a job since I've been here. And long story short, there was a white guy who berated and just was nasty to me in front of my black coworkers. And no one said anything. I was a new employee, and this white guy was really, really coming for me. He was really like rude. He was inappropriate, saying things to me that was just out of line. But what bothered me more was the fact that no one said anything. I'm a new employee, and these black people, I looked at their faces, no one responded. No one said, hey, man, you shouldn't be talking to him like that. And that bothered me more, to be honest. So I remember getting up and going to my car and just screaming, literally screaming into the car, just screaming, because I was more upset with how they responded. And I don't usually use these terms, but since I've been here, I've seen house Negroes, house Negro mentality, that yes, massa, sir, to me mentality. It bothers the fuck out of me to even watch it up close, you know, and there's no other words. Again, even if they had went to the manager and said, so and so said something to Mose, I don't think that was appropriate. No one had my back. But I had the same issues in Atlanta too. I've mentioned before, I had a manager who harassed me for 5 years, harassed me every single day, made my life hell at this job. And I was there way before he arrived, but no one said anything. HR, my coworkers, this man harassed the hell out of me. And he's the only person that I've ever wished death on. And I would never do it, but this man went out of his way to traumatize me at work. And I won't say his name, but it's one of those things that he was one of the reasons I decided to leave Atlanta. He didn't run me off. It was just, I had been at that job for like 13 years and it was time to go. But again, my point is that I had to leave. I had to walk away. He was trying to get me to snap. He would have gladly put me in jail and had the police come, haul me away. But I wasn't giving him that. He had to look at me, and I smiled at him every single day. And it took everything that was holy. And I have to give God the credit for walking with me during that time. And I've had situations with women, Black women, Hispanic women, white women, that have provoked me to anger. And I have different levels of anger when it comes to women. But specifically white women, Karen, I will eat her for breakfast. I do not, under any circumstance. And if she starts to cry, it makes me even more angry. Because my thing is, if you fucking with my money, my job, my reputation, my character, and you're lying, and I've had women lie on me, I've had from all the way back to my 20s to now. And I have no mercy for that. I mean, if you approach a man like a man, you're a man to me. Now, I would never lay hands on a woman, again, unless I was provoked. But I've seen some really treacherous people throughout my life. And how I managed to keep it all inside, I'll never know. But getting back to what I was saying earlier, that's a lot of anger to hold in. And eventually somebody gets it, meaning somebody's going to catch it. And I'm not saying me, I'm just saying we all carry Black rage and Black trauma in some level or form, whether it's from our childhood, our relationships, but a lot of us are repressing our anger. But what I'm choosing to do is use my anger. I use it. I use it to create, because if I stop creating, then you have to worry. If I stop creating and drawing and writing and whatever I'm doing, then you probably need to worry. But there's an endless things for me to do with my anger. And right now I'm in a very interesting place. I struggle with my depression, with my anger, with my anxiety. But what I'm doing differently is I'm waiting in silence on God. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to let him lead me the rest of the way. Because when it comes to my friendships, I've cut a lot of people off. My circle is small. If I gain new friends, they have to be introduced by God. God has to bring people in my life that have been approved by him. That's the space I'm in. If you're not adding value to my life, whether it's spiritually, mentally, financially, if you're not supporting me, my endeavors, if you don't want the best for me, there's no room for you in my life. I don't let those people get me angry anymore. You're dismissed. There's no fanfare. Don't leave me. I'm not begging. I know what I bring to my friendships. I know the kind of friend that I am, that I've always been. So Those days of arguing with people and trying to get them to understand me, those days are done. Never happens. It will never happen again. And I can have acquaintances. I can have people that that I do business with. And even then, it has to be of value to me. I'm tired of letting people upset me to the point where I want to cuss you out. I don't want to ever get that far. I don't want to ever get that far where I have to say something to make somebody hurt. But if you provoke me, I'll go there. But I've always managed to, do I think I'm capable of hurting someone? Only if I'm provoked to, and I go out of my way to make sure I'm not in positions where I know me. If I know I'm getting upset, I'm going to either leave the room, leave the situation. But if someone follows me or provokes me and keeps on, that's a whole nother situation. I'm not proud of losing my temper. I'm just not proud of it. And I think everybody is capable of hurting someone if provoked. And again, my point is that I believe black people specifically carry a lot of anger around, whether we know it or not. And again, with the Carmelo situation, all I'm going to say is that I think that he had some repressed anger. And I'm not justifying it at all. And he definitely should be punished for the crime. But the severity of the crime is my issue. 35 years is a long time for a young man. And we all know if the situation was in reverse, I don't think it wouldn't be the same. That's my issue. And I think when people getting online and this division among black people about whether this young man should be punished or whether it was a racial thing, it was definitely a racial thing in the sense that they were black and white and how it was handled and how he's treated and how that young man would have been treated if it was in reverse. And again, I'm not trying to get on a political soapbox. I'm not going to get on and say who's right or wrong. My point is white people get off on us being divided, arguing with each other. And we have never been in such a place where the country is going backwards. Before I may wake up I'm going to be in chains. It's like, I feel like we're moving backwards and black people are the victims of ignorance. We are our own worst enemy. I would never get online, and I have issues with us as a people, but specific names and getting on and putting each other down, I'm just not doing that. I think we need to do better, but publicly assassinating people's character and their, it's just no good can come from that. And I don't respect you for doing it. I don't respect you. I'll call a person out individually. If I'm online or a post, I may say something about if I think I have a difference of opinion. But in terms of people degrading or putting people down, other black people, I don't think that's cool. There's a lot of things I don't agree with, but I respect people's right to do it. I do. And I think everybody wants special treatment. I think that we do have to have conversations with our children, realistic conversations. I don't think I got those conversations. Well, I know I didn't when I was a kid. I wish I had been more prepared for my experiences with racism. And this is no reflection on my parents. It's just I think they were just trying to protect us, which I can respect. But moving to the South and then out here in the Midwest, it's been very traumatic for me because I didn't know being black and being the kind of black man I am was a problem. I've always spoken up for myself. I've always been that guy. I never kissed ass. I never understood why people did it. I don't know. I've never, it's probably why I have been in the situations I've been in and why I'm in the situations I'm in now. Uh, but I feel like you have to accept me as I am. You know, like I said in my last podcast, I think I've been too black for white people and not black enough for black people. But I don't really care. I'm Mose. You know, if shit don't seem right, I'm gonna say something about it. I don't like being disrespected anyway by anybody, and I will call you out on it. I mean, that's just how I'm wired. You know, there isn't enough money for people to disrespect me. You know, and God bless the parents that have kids, and you have to repress because you have responsibilities. You got to keep it all in. But some days I'm angry as fuck. I mean, angry. I want to tell some people to kiss my motherfucking ass. I mean, when I say it, I'm thinking it. My facial expressions say it. But am I proud of it? No. But it's a real thing I deal with every day. And I know if I'm dealing with it, somebody else is dealing with it too. And like I said, I've been called nigger more times than I care to remember. I've never been called faggot or any kind of gay slur. Not to my face. Never. But it's always been about being black. The kind of black man I am. Mose, you have an attitude, or Mose, you're too quiet. People think you're not approachable. My thing is, if you say something stupid to me, I'm going to respond. You know, I am that guy. If you think you're going to come at me and I look like I have an attitude, you're probably right. Because you probably have one. And my biggest thing, for example, I've worked in corporate America for a long time. And I can always tell different types of women when I'm in the presence of women, white, black, Hispanic. If I'm in the presence of a white woman, there are some white women that want you to acknowledge their presence. They want you to say hello, good morning, and to give them some kind of acknowledgement. If I catch a vibe and I feel like you just need me to say that to you, I won't say anything. I'll purposely ignore you, just like they ignore me. You know, I'm the big black man in the room, but you don't want to say, excuse me. And that sends me into a rage. And I've checked many a white woman. It's like, I don't know who you think you are. And she gets this, oh my God, I can't believe it. And as nice and as sweet as I can be, I am that motherfucker. I don't like Karens. I don't hide it. I really don't. Old, young, I've been in the presence of white women and I've slayed them because I've told white women, black men have been killed behind this foolishness. I refuse. And it's one of those things, again, I'm not proud of it. You know, I'm not going around saying, oh, look, you know, kill Karen. I don't mean that. It's just that I know my temperament. So it's better for me to walk away. I've quit jobs. Believe me, the list is long of racial situations that I've been in. But I have to share a story that my partner, Sam, my first partner who died of AIDS in 1993, he was at the hospital and he had to wear a diaper and he was literally like 90 pounds. He had lost a lot of weight. But anyway, I went to visit him and there was a white nurse that came into the room. I'm going to call her Hazel. And she was rude to him and he had to go to the restroom. So he started to cry because he was upset because she was rushing him. And she needed to take his vitals and give him his medication, blah, blah, blah. So she said some things in front of me, like to get him upset. So I went in. I said, who are you talking to? You're going to stay here. You're going to let him go to the bathroom. And then you're going to wait for him. And then you're going to do what you need to do. So she's like, well, I'm not going to stay here if he's going to be here. I said, oh, yes, you are. So I went Shirley MacLaine and I went down to the nurse's station and I wreaked havoc. I was 24 years old. I wasn't playing. The only thing I look back in hindsight, she could have hurt him after I left the hospital because he was upset that I was upset. He was like, Mose, don't do that. And she could have done anything to him after I left. True enough. I wasn't thinking that. But You were not going to talk to my partner any kind of way, and he's sick. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Big, heavy-set white woman just went in, and it took everything that was holy. I was like, oh no, get her out of here. And they complied, and she left, and they got another nurse. But I've always been this dude. And again, it always gets back to, how do you use that black trauma, that black rage? You have to use it. And I am a praying man. I am. But I also believe that you have to do the work. And believe me, I ask God for help every single day. Every time I open my eyes, give me the courage to get through this day. And again, the list is long of situations I've been in. You wouldn't believe me if I shared it with you. But my point is, we have to use that black rage and that black trauma for good. Volunteer work, church, whatever you need to do to use that energy to problem solve, whatever it might be. But sitting in it will get somebody killed. I'm speaking. I know. If you're sitting in anger and sitting in it and rooting in it, you are going to hurt somebody and eventually hurt yourself. So my point is, I'm not condoning anything, but let's call a spade a spade. Black people carry pain every day. I don't care who they are. Rich, old, poor, gay, straight, trans, whatever. You're not going to tell me you're not walking around here with repressed anger because you're in denial. We're living in the same country. I'm sorry. We carry it every day. And we have to figure out ways to use it, but not on each other. Not on each other. And if somebody's wrong, then call them out. If I'm a parent, you're going to talk to your kids about the Carmelo Anthony situation. You don't want your kids, but your kids have repressed anger too. And you need to give them something to do with that energy. But telling them just to pray or to get over it, just to walk away, because it's going to happen again and again and again and again. So what do I do with that energy? Do I write in my journal? Do I go to church? Do I play basketball? Whatever. What do I need to do? Because it's going to happen again. And fortunately, my parents encouraged me is to find something to do with that energy. And again, putting each other down. Black people, we got to do better. We got to do better with that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. But I want to get off my soapbox now, But anyway, I'm revamping my store, All Things Moetic. Stop on by. I have a sale going on right now, 25% off everything. I'm revamping. I took a lot of stuff down from the store, but I'm going to really put a lot of things back up. So if you don't see some things, it's not that they're gone. It's just that I'm doing some reconstructing with my store. So if you go by my store, check out my t-shirts. I have a lot of shirts going on for the summer. And I just want to say thank you for listening to all who are listening. I was feeling a little discouraged. I have been the last few weeks, and I just want to say I appreciate the feedback that you give me on my podcast. It's really appreciated. It's not falling on deaf ears. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world, and that you're one day closer to your dreams, hopes, prayers, and aspirations coming true. Thank you for listening.